I received a question recently on the Patreon live stream, and there was so much conversation around it that I wanted to share it here. And the question had to do with working on ourselves and then realizing that the relationships we have in our life maybe aren't the right ones anymore, or that the dynamic between people in our lives isn't what we want. And the person who asked the question was saying that they've been doing all this work on themselves in therapy, and then they went out to a dinner for their birthday, and they realized that in all of their friendships, they have made it okay for them to not be the center of attention ever. Like that everybody else always cuts them off, takes the floor, and talks about themselves. And even when they try to tell people how they're doing, the other people in their lives bring it right back to them. And we've all had relationships like that. But today, instead of just telling you like the therapy kind of reasons why this can happen and how we can make it better, I wanted to share more of a personal story. Now, when I was probably between the ages of like 28 and like 32, I ended 3 really close friendships. And it was really hard for me. I'm going to be honest. It was a really difficult time. And I kept thinking like, maybe something's wrong with me. I was going in to see my therapist, and I'm like, what's my role in this? Like, why is this so frustrating? And why do I feel so hurt by this? And anyway, going round and round and round about what I was going through and why this was happening in such a short period of time, losing 3. I mean, these are like super, super close friends of mine. And my therapist brought my attention to something, and she'd asked me when those relationships started. And that's important. It was important for me because these relationships began when I wasn't the best version of myself. Now, you guys know I've been in and out of therapy since I was 15, but my first therapist from ages 15 till I went away to college at 18 wasn't a really good fit. I grew up in a super small town. She was like one of maybe 3 options, and she was super religious. As you guys know, I was raised in church, but don't go anymore personally. And it just wasn't what I needed. It wasn't a good fit. And so I didn't really start making personal progress until I saw my therapist, Rebecca, at Pepperdine, because most universities offer therapy for free, thank God. And I started seeing her at least once a week. When my dad started getting sick, I went twice a week for a while. But in that time, I realized how much of a people pleaser I was. And for those of you who've been following me for a long time, you know I'm a recovering people pleaser. And I bring that up because the friendships that ended in this time in my late 20s to early 30s were friendships that began before I was 19 years old. Maybe 19 to 20. Maybe one of them I think I met her when I was 19, and we became really close friends by like 20. So all those friendships began when I was barely even aware of the fact that I was a people pleaser and that was a bad thing in all the ways it had played out in my life. Now, flash forward like 10 years into my late 20s, I finally realized that this wasn't something that I wanted, and that when I wasn't serving them first, we had issues and there were arguments and disagreements. And I remember even meeting one of my friends before the friendship just kind of faded away. I remember meeting her and thinking that it went well, and coming back home to tell Sean, like, I think we really repaired things. I really apologized, and like, we're both going to do better. And he asked me, he's like, did she say sorry for, all the other things, like talking behind your back and being really judgmental and being so negative? Did she apologize for any of that? And I was quiet because I was like, no, she didn't. And he's like, well, it didn't sound like it went very well. And I was like, shit, it didn't. Ugh. And I had that realization. Again, I didn't see it myself. I don't want any of you to think that like, I know better and I always do better, and going to therapy just means that like, oh, I know things and I can change it right away. It's still hard. And when that happened, I was like, crap, I thought this was good and we were going to be able to repair this. And then the more I thought about it, the more I realized that I don't think she had ever apologized for anything. I was always the one that was super apologetic. Hello, people pleaser, right? I apologize for apologizing. I apologize to strangers for being in their way. I apologize for everything, right? And so realizing that dynamic and that I had let that happen again made me see it. It was like, I don't know, it's like a slap in the face, right? And so I realized at that point that relationship couldn't continue unless things changed. And I just wanted to bring this up because I think sometimes we assume that friendships and relationships in general last forever. However, a lot of times we meet people at a time in our lives, like in my experience, when I wasn't healthy, I didn't have good boundaries, I was people pleasing, I was doing everything for everybody else and leaving nothing for myself. If I meet people at that time in my life, they maybe like me and want to be friends with me for all of the wrong reasons, essentially maybe for some of the behaviors that I want to change. Obviously, there's probably some good reasons too, right? It's not like we're all good or all bad, but some of the things that then if I get into therapy like I did and start working to change and to better communicate and better uphold boundaries and put myself first, that sometimes those relationships don't work anymore. And for me, it wasn't so much like they're wrong and I'm right. I mean, sure, when I was angry and upset and like grieving, I went through that phase of like, oh, they're such jerks and blah, blah, blah. But the truth is that they weren't all wrong and I wasn't all right. It was more that like I had changed. I'd like shed a skin of a past self, and the things that they liked about me didn't exist anymore. And so then those relationships just didn't work. I found like another relationship, I'll give you another example, that my therapist challenged me to recognize where I was putting in so much more effort in relationships than the other person. And I'll give you another example. I had this friendship that I'd had for probably one of my longest friendships. And my therapist had challenged me to recognize relationships where I was putting in a ton more effort than the other person. And I recognized this relationship as one that could possibly be that way. And so I had talked to this friend and I had said, yeah, I've been working in therapy, and I'm just trying to put in the same amount of effort in my relationships as I'm getting out of it. And she was like, yeah, of course, that makes sense. Sounds super healthy and helpful. And so I did that with her, and I stopped being the only one to reach out. If she would call me, then I would always call her. And it would, that was kind of the give and take. And if she was going to ask me how my day was, I was going to ask how her day was. Now, I know this sounds really contrived, but just hang with me. So I started just doing this. And I'm not going to lie, you guys. We had that one call where I told her I was going to work on this. And I started planning and preparing on how I would enact that in my life. And I never talked to her again. Because she never called me. I always called her to check in and to see how she was doing. And then probably about 6 or 8 months later, she reached out to me, as she would do, just to ask me for favors. And she was always in dire need. It was always this huge event. And she left me this message being like, oh my God, I need your help. And I need you to do this for me and blah, blah, blah. Do you think I called her back? I didn't. And I know you could say, Katie, you're being a shitty friend, but that's not a friendship. In my mind, that's not a healthy friendship. And that isn't what I want to cultivate. And that's not what I want to develop. And I also don't want people to think that I'm saying that friendships can't last forever, because I have a lot of good friends in my life that have been around forever, like my friend Kim, my friend Rocio, my friend Joanna. And then I have new friendships I've made time for, like Dr. Alexa Altman. You guys know her. I love her. My friend Christina P. But in all of those relationships, we have grown in the same direction, or I feel that we are going in the same direction. And that doesn't mean that my friendships aren't varied and people can't be different. But when it comes to priorities and focuses in relationships and give and take, just that natural ebb and flow, they all have that. And the one way that I know now that relationships are healthy and good and things that I should put more effort into is that I get super excited to see them. And I know you might be thinking, well, that's obvious. Of course, they're your friends. But if we're honest with ourselves, if I'm honest with myself, I wasn't excited to see those other friends. It was actually very draining for me. And again, I'm not right and they're not wrong. It just didn't work anymore, right? They wanted to take because that's what I'd always done, right? I'd always been the giver so that they could take. And when I stopped giving, it was like they were trying to steal from me, and it was just exhausting to try to fight that off. It was like putting boundaries up while they're still trying to cross over them, and it was just draining. And so now all of my relationships and the friendships that I make time for, because I think we all could agree that like as we get older, our time gets smaller and smaller to be able to see friends and catch up, and all of that becomes something we have to organize and schedule. And it's just not as easy as it was maybe, in college or in our early 20s. And so really, I just want to talk about this because the person who asked the question, it clearly resonated with a lot of you on Patreon. And some of the questions that she had at the end were like, how do I let them know that these things are happening? And also lamenting and wishing that we could go back to a time when we didn't know. And I feel that sometimes. Do you ever feel like you have these realizations in your life, or your therapist notice patterns and you're like, I wish I could go back to when I didn't know about that, because now I can't unsee it. It's almost like when someone tells you this photo looks like two people kissing or something. Like Sean recently sent me this meme where it's like Wolverine looks like two Batmans kissing, and now I can't unsee it. It's like that in therapy. You're like, I can't unsee that. I can't unknow that. And now it's affecting everything. But it is for the better. And the one thing I did do with all of these friendships is, because it didn't make sense to me to directly be like, hey, can you let me talk for a bit? Like, I don't think that's what I want to cultivate either, right? I don't want to be pushy and feel too aggressive. I want to be assertive and clear. And so what I said to each of these friends in different ways was like, hey, I've been working on myself, because they knew I'd been in therapy for a long time and they knew I was doing this. And I'm like, I'm trying to find a way to better communicate and advocate for myself. So if you find me like letting you know I'm upset really early on, or being more communicative about how I'm feeling, it's just because I'm trying to be better and do better. And all of them were like, yeah, awesome, of course, And even my friend Joanna, actually, when I told her about this, she was like, yeah, of course. How can I help? Is there a way, like, can I give you more time to talk? People, real friends will try to assist and be there and support. So I let all these friends know I was making these changes and trying to be better. And then, I gave them opportunities to meet me where I was at and to kind of go in the direction that I was trying to make my life go, in the way that I wanted my relationships to continue. And I'm going to be honest here, all three of those relationships just fell off. So there was no big fight. There was no big, we're not friends anymore conversation. It was more like, hey, you're going your way and I'm going my way. And again, their way's not wrong and my way's not right. It was just this time in my life where I realized, hey, these aren't relationships that are serving me anymore. They're not breath in. They're not filling me up. And I don't know if you're going through that. I hope that this kind of helps. Sometimes I think personal stories are a little more, it's easier to hear and learn. I know that from myself. And yeah, right now I feel pretty good. I definitely feel like I'm in a time of transition, or in a time of transformation in life. And maybe I'll go through another layer of this. I don't know for any of you, have you been through many rounds of this? I've only been through, there were 3 friendships, but it was like, kind of like a 4 or 5 year period where it all happened. And that's why I was looking inside, because I'm like, oh my God, am I like a totally shit person? Is this why my friendships are ending? And then I realized, no, it's because we're not the same people we were when we met each other and decided to be friends. I don't know if anybody ever watched The New Girl, but I think it was like season 2, maybe 1, where the main character, I think her name is Jess, and then Cece, her best friend, they're like, would we be friends if we met now? And the answer was no. And sometimes I think if we wouldn't be friends with someone now, maybe we shouldn't be friends with them now. Like if we'd met, just because we've known each other for a long time doesn't mean the relationships have to continue. They can if we grow together. But sometimes, and in my case, in those 3 relationships, it was best just to let it go. So anyway, that's just a little story time from me, and something that we talked about on the Patreon live stream that just got a lot of chatter, and I hope it's helpful. At the very least, I hope hearing some of my own personal stories just gives a little more, gives a deeper understanding, maybe is helpful to you in some way. If you like these kinds of videos, I'm happy to share more like this. I just never really have, so just a little bit different. But give it a like, let me know in those comments if you enjoy this, and I will see you next time.